Hi folks, this is Florida Man, returning to you after a painfully long hiatus. I feel bad about that, because I actually enjoy making these videos, and I know I have at least a few people who enjoy watching them. So I have plans to produce more regular content. Today, though, is special. Today is about WDC, the World Diplomacy Championships. It was held in Washington, D.C., the so-called swamp itself, and I was thrilled to be able to attend. I met people I had only previously played with before online, like Big Gun and Nanook the Eskimo, and I stayed with two of the best guys in the diplomacy community, Pat and Rob. I'm thankful to them and everyone else I met for making this trip one to remember. Now that's out of the way, on to what you came for. My after-action report. Round 1 started off really well. I drew Italy. Great. I was playing against Sven Vasseur as Austria, Peter McNamara as England, Steve Cooley as France, Dan Wang as Germany, Grant Steele as Russia, and by the way, that is an amazing name, and Jamie Woodbury as Turkey. She's another play diplomacy person, by the way, Cinny B. Right off the bat, I wanted to work with Austria, and he wanted to work with me. That seemed solid already. Then we had Turkey wanting to work with us and attack Russia. Great. If that happens, I'll be the winner of that conflict no matter what. France and I agreed to non-aggression, as is pretty normal for me as either Italy or France. Okay, fine. Then, orders process. I make a pretty standard opening, setting up for a Lepanto, and almost everyone else makes pretty standard moves too. Bounce in the Black Sea, channel DMZ'd, you know, as you do. But Germany managed to misorder in spring 1901. From then on, he's a target. I'm sorry, Dan, but I think you helped mess up my game right there, because this solidifies an English-French alliance that I will be trying to undermine for the rest of the game between two expert players. Fall sees Turkey move against Russia, taking the Black Sea, while Austria secures Galicia. Russia, sensing weakness, has moved into Silesia to join in attacking Germany. England gets Norway and Belgium. We reassure Turkey that we're all working together, even though I'm pretty clearly moving in the general Lepanto direction. Spring 1902. We get Turkey fully pointed at Russia, and Austria supports him into Romania while supporting me into the Aegean Sea. Germany prepares to defend himself against England and France, but England seems to back off, convoying to Norway and moving Norway to St. Pete. Things are looking awfully dicey for Russia. Fall sees my army convoyed into Bulgaria and Austria occupying Romania. Turkey is quite understandably upset with this. Austria and I also moved to Tyrolia and Bohemia to take advantage of the apparent German vulnerability. England continued to rack up victories, scoring Sweden, while his partner France basically sat there waiting his turn. Spring 1903, we promised to be nicer to Turkey and help her into Sevastopol. Austria supports me into Munich, and Russia helps himself into Berlin, even as he continues losing ground at home. Then I had an idea. Specifically a bad idea. A really bad idea. Like a 3 a.m. idea. I seem to be missing a couple of photos from this period of decline, but here's how things end up. So a couple of things happened here. I allowed France to convince me that he'd fight England rather than moving south. Dumb. I felt bad about attacking Turkey all the time. At some point after I took Smyrna. Bad thinking. And I also believed that Austria would probably stab me when and if the opportunity arose. That may or may not have been true, impossible to know in hindsight. So I took Greece and Trieste. And then, lo and behold, France showed up in the Mediterranean. Oh dear. I ultimately make up with Austria, and with the last remaining German and Turkish units, we make a stand against the Entente. We slow down their progress remarkably, but we also fail to get Russia on our side, which gradually dooms us. With Russia oriented south, we can't hold a line, at least not for very long. Still, even as he gains ground, I hold on to the Italian homeland for a long time. Eventually, England is in Romania, but I'm still mostly okay. Still, it's pretty clear this is a losing battle, and Russia remains immune to our persuasion. For a little while, it looks a bit better. We actually recapture Tunisia and Romania, but we're really just forestalling the inevitable. Russia is in Armenia now, and England is in Vienna. So, basically everything's topsy-turvy and the sky is falling. While I gain a little ground back in the Med, England retakes Romania and Russia occupies Smyrna. Then England gets Budapest. Then France is in Trieste and I make a mistake in the Med. Our high-wire act begins tumbling down. Pretty soon, I've lost Tunisia and Venice, and Austria and Turkey are just plain gone. At this point, I begin pushing for a draw. I pledge to drag my feet as long as possible in defending myself otherwise, which is all I can really do. I also talk to England, though. I suggest that he stab and grab more centers, and I promise that I'll be on his side if he does. To my surprise, he actually seems to take the idea rather seriously. In fall, to my amusement, he supports me into Russian-controlled Bulgaria. He also snags a couple more Russian centers for himself, putting him in an even more commanding board leadership position than he held before. Not long after that, we draw. I remain at 3 centers, including the one that England supported me into. Russia finishes with 4, down from a high of 7 while he was cooperating with England and France, and England holds most of the rest, with France close behind. That was my initiation into world-level diplomacy, and while it was fun, it was also harrowing. My second game wouldn't be much better. To make a long story short, I was France, I tried to get Germany to ally with me against England, she went with him instead, and they crushed me. I survived with 2 centers by allying with the Juggernaut, and Turkey topped the board. The third game was even worse. I played as Turkey, on the same board as Jordan Connors, who plays as Conk on Play Diplomacy. If you're familiar with the site, you'll know he's the best player there, by ranking, and he proved remarkably good at face-to-face, too. He coordinated an alliance with Italy and Austria that eliminated me in fall of 1903. It was the only game in the tournament in which I was actually eliminated completely. Then he took out Austria, then he soloed. An absolute crushing victory, and he ended up getting 6th or 7th place in the tournament as a whole. Fortunately, my last game was a bit better. I was England, and I was placed on a board with Chris Brand as Austria, Paul Hess as France, Dan Lester as Germany, Manus Hand as Italy, Eric Grinnell as Russia, and Tim Richardson as Turkey. This was a somewhat intimidating board to be on because Chris is a world champion, and by all accounts Dan is equally or similarly strong, and I knew that going in. Fortunately, things actually turned out all right. We convinced France he was in a Western triple. We crushed Russia really quickly early on, pretty much everyone agreed on that. Then Germany and I stabbed and absorbed France. And by the time we had agreed to the draw, I had broken into the Mediterranean, and Germany was pressing up against the north of Austria. I wish I could give a more detailed account of these later games, by the way, but unfortunately I did not think to take pictures of the board positions after the first game, basically. Except for the ending positions. Anyway, the bottom line is that I really enjoyed WDC. But it was much more of a learning experience than a personal triumph, unlike most of my after-action reports here. In all but one of my games, I learned my lessons the hard way, through defeat. I don't regret any of it, of course. The biggest takeaway for me is that face-to-face play requires different skills than online play. And at this high of a level of play, there are massive advantages to having more face-to-face experience. So I leave you, my fellow players, with a recommendation. I really enjoyed my face-to-face experience, my first tournament. Go and do likewise. Florida Man